Hi, I'm John Mallis. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Wednesday morning. Glad you're here. We're talking about Syrian refugees right here in the Central Valley and in Fresno. Many more are coming in. The numbers are rising. How we take care of them is the big problem, and that's the big question on the table today. You can call in 436-ME-TV option 11. Glad to have you along for the ride this Wednesday morning. Back in a moment. And back here on the program Wednesday morning, connect with me on MeTV Fresno. I'm glad you're here, my friends, and you can call in at 436-MeTV option 11. We have an open phone line. Let me get through the monologue. Make sure and turn down the sound on your television set if you do call in. This is a major story with the Syrian refugees coming into the Central Valley. They're coming in by the truckloads, my friends. Last couple of years, the numbers have increased. You know what's going on in Syria? Since 2011, there's a massive civil war going on there. The country has been just torn to pieces. We'll talk about that during the course of the program, of course. You all know what happened in Aleppo. One of the presidential candidates, do you remember which one? Didn't even know where or what Aleppo was. Was that Gary Johnson, the man running for president? Had no chance at winning the presidency or the White House. And anyway, we'll talk about that on this program today. But first, a quick programming note for tomorrow. A first-time guest, Dr. Jennifer Crocker, will be here from Children's Hospital. She's a physiatrist. What is that? Well, we'll talk to her about physical therapy and what her job is at Children's. She's been out there for quite a few years. She's happy to come on the program. Then on Friday, we'll talk about Temperance Flat Dam. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. H.R. 23 passed in the House of Representatives about 2-3 weeks ago. That's the water bill. David Valadao signed off on. He was the author of that bill. Now it goes on to the Senate. We'll talk about that, the need for Temperance Flat to save all this water from going out into the ocean. Guess who voted against it, though? Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat out of San Francisco. In fact, on Monday, David Taub, George Hostert will be here. Taub spent a week in Washington interviewing Pelosi and other local politicians about Temperance Flat and about that bill that passed in the House of Representatives. So a very important show coming up on Friday and on Monday, because on Monday there is a deadline regarding Temperance Flat and the building of that dam. We'll tell you about that on Friday. In the meantime, you're watching us live on Comcast Channel 375. As usual, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the morning. It's a call-in show, 436-ME-TV option 11. But, my friends, if you don't have Comcast, it's 43.6 and 13.1 over the air with a digital television antenna sold right here at Ventura TV. Then the replay comes over the air broadcast 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube. 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. After that, you can catch us on YouTube. You know, I think this kind of goes without saying. There is no easy solution to the Syrian refugee crisis or even those Syrian refugees that have been totally, completely displaced out of their homes in the country of Syria. They're moving around all over the place, all over Europe. Some are coming here, although not right at this moment. There is a ban. As you know, President Trump has imposed that ban. They keep pouring into the Central Valley, though. Many are finding jobs, and they are being embraced by those here in our own community. I want to put a photo up on the screen, show you the first one. Just recently, 2 national articles, one in the New York Times, the other in the LA Times. The focus was on the Syrian refugees living right here in the city of Fresno. Here are some of them. In the last 2 years, roughly 20,000 Syrian refugees have made their way into this country. But keep in mind, President Trump's partial ban on new refugees of any kind remains in place for now. Roll the videotape. Meanwhile, about 35 Syrian refugee families call Fresno home. That means 200 or so are living here. New York Times article focusing on the fact that one reason Syrians are in Fresno is because of affordable housing. There really is no cheaper place in California to find an apartment or a place you can call home. Problems, though, in some school districts, they're just not prepared to deal with Arabic-speaking students, so they are hiring translators. Many Syrians are finding jobs in the meat and poultry plants. Others are struggling, but receiving financial help from local church groups, mosques, and temples. Yes, a different story altogether in Europe, though, where the refugee crisis has become a total nightmare.
Trump
now
for
you can come
Friday's
up.
executive order. Europe has accepted
2 minutes.
many more refugees than the United States over the last several years. But accepting those refugees may have triggered a wave of nationalist movements in many of those countries, from the people to the politicians. RT's Alexei Arshevsky reports.
Justifying radical changes to U.S. immigration policy, Donald Trump has mostly named preventing acts of terrorism in America. As an example, he mentioned the refugee crisis in the EU and very early into his campaign as well.
Well, it's a serious problem. We haven't seen anything like it since the Second World War, and it's getting worse and worse. And I was actually impressed in one way, but surprised that Merkel in Germany allowed this to happen, because they're really flowing through all over Europe. You know, there's a lot of security risk with it, but something has to be done. It's an unbelievable humanitarian problem.
Now that Trump seems to be sticking to his campaign promises, let's look at what he's been talking about in regards to Europe. The full 2016 data has not yet been compiled, but the 2015 Europe accepted over 1.3 million refugees. A third of them, 476,000, went to Germany. The top 5 is completed by Sweden, France, Italy, and Hungary. Who are those people? Mostly Syrians, with those fleeing Afghanistan making just a half of them, followed by even a lesser number of Iraqis. Iranians, that's one of the 7 countries on Trump's ban list, are almost bottom of that chart. And what do politicians in Europe say about the refugee crisis? Well, official Berlin and Paris stood in unison against Trump's executive order last Friday, but there's a certain degree of discourse regarding immigration policies in both. In Germany, for instance, the refugee issue has moved into the spotlight of political debate, and the country hosts an election in September this year. While Chancellor Merkel is still very popular, according to Infotest polls, at 45% approval rating, this figure is still her lowest since 2011. And at the same
Live in our studio right now is Reza Nekumanish from the Islamic Cultural Center right here in the city of Fresno. By the way, my friends, he's a big shot. I don't know if he has a big head yet, but I don't know. He was featured in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago. Big old picture there, a big Reza Nekumanish, and man, it was I don't know, he said they took about 60 photos, and they showed this one of him just looking down, but it was a very nice photo. It was a good photo. Anyway, featured in the New York Times. In fact, he was quoted in the New York Times, as was Trevor Carey, the radio host at Power Talk 96.7. He's a good buddy. Well, he's a pretty good friend of mine, I guess, even though we don't get together hardly at all. We talk on the phone, but they quoted Trevor as well, talking about the Syrian refugee crisis, and Reza was quoted as well. It seems like the entire community right here in the city of Fresno embracing these Syrian refugees, perhaps feeling very sorry for them. A war-torn country that's been split apart by so many factions and fractions, my friends. It's unbelievable. And of course, the recent bombing by President Trump, claiming to, fight back against the Assad regime. 436-ME-TV, option 11, what to do with all the refugees coming in. Back in just a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Whirlpool appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Touch the new Whirlpool Ice Collection. It offers a modern style made to create an inspiring kitchen experience. Save big on this Whirlpool Black Ice or White Ice kitchen. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
436-ME-TV, option 11. I want you to call in and weigh in on this Syrian refugee crisis, because you know what? It's not going away anytime soon. Those people are using the floodgates to go into Europe. They're going into England. Most of the refugees around the world are flooding Germany. They're flooding all these countries in Europe, including France. France is a huge one. Now, there was a recent, obviously, terror attack in France where there was obviously, I guess, a Syrian that was responsible for the bombing, for the terrorist attack. And so that's why President Trump and others are worried about some of these people coming into the country. And it's the vetting process that we're worried about, that politicians are worried about, that Devin Nunes is worried about, that Valadeo is worried about. I don't know about Costa or Pelosi or any of those others, but a lot of politicians are worried about our vetting process and what it means. So Reza Nekumanish is here, Islamic Cultural Center. So I understand you were too happy with the picture in the New York Times. Hey, it's not every day you get into the New York Times. That's seen all over the world.
Yeah, since it's not every day that it happens, I was hoping for something maybe a little bit more.
A little more flattering?
Flattering. But it's okay. It's okay. They do what they do.
No.
The article was good.
No, the article was fantastic. In fact, I believe I've got the article right.
And it was fair.
Right
it was balanced. It shared both sides.
Yes, here is the New York Times article right here. I printed this article out from my computer. Hold it up right there. And let me see if I can find, hold that shot right there. Let me see if I can find the picture of Reza. And as I do, the first question I have for you is, you know, how do we take care of these Syrian refugees? What are their needs? Oh, wait a second. Hang on. Before you answer that, here's the photo of Reza. Let's hold that up here. That is Reza. Now, explain that photo. What are you doing there?
I don't know. I think that looks like it's in between photos.
Well, what are you doing? Are you picking your ear there? What's going on?
It looks like I'm pulling down my my headpiece, the kufi. I don't know. I can't explain what I'm doing because I have no clue. I don't even know. Anyways.
Are you sure that's you?
You know, the uniform of the jacket, the kufi, and the duckbill kind of give me away usually.
Really?
So it looks like that.
But you're not smiling like you usually do. You usually got this giant smile on your face.
That's probably because the first picture I was smiling, then he was going to take another one that I smiled, and in between he snapped what he snapped.
Yeah, and you're half asleep there. I don't know. You looks like you're sleepwalking actually.
Oh man.
All right, New York Times, nonetheless, a world-renowned paper for well over 100 and something years, and so the article was fair and balanced. It was very accurate. Talked about Fresno, and so what to do? How do we take care of these Syrian refugees that are coming into Fresno specifically, because they're going to keep coming in? I mean, I know there's a ban right now. The ban won't stand forever, but how do we take care of them, Reza, in your mind?
So that's $1 million question. If you can answer, yeah, if I could answer it, I would.
Reza could.
Reza doesn't have an answer. Reza has a piece of an answer. Reza has a piece of a machine that has to be in place to take care of so many people that are coming into our valley, and it's not so many people. Well,
in plain English, what does that mean?
In plain English, it means that first of all, everybody who comes here is suffering some sort of PTSD. You know,
okay.
they've experienced war and death firsthand.
Just like a U.S. veteran would.
Just like a U.S. veteran would. So so they've had family members killed. They've had their homes bombed and destroyed. They've seen people killed and murdered. Mm-hmm. So first of all, when somebody finally is able to arrive in the United States and make their way to Fresno, we know that first of all there are some issues that every family is going to deal with. Second, there's a culture shock. You know, they come from Syria, where life is one way, and they come to the United States where life is very different. Mm-hmm. So they need to understand the new culture that they are going to become part of. There's a language barrier. So
huge
they have
language barrier, and a problem for some of the school districts because they don't have the proper translators. They have to hire them.
Right. So it's not so much a problem anymore because they have hired translators. You know, the local school district, Fresno Unified, specifically like Awani Middle School with Principal Jose Guzman, he did a wonderful job bringing in new students, enculturating them, teaching them what it is to be a student here in the United States, particularly at Awani Middle School, and just working with them and their families to create the best possible experience in an American school for them. But we have a language barrier. We also have an issue of employment. You know, if we don't want our new neighbors to become a burden on our society, the only way to do that is for them to have gainful employment so that they can take care of their families. Many of the families are not small. You know, some of them have 4 or 5 children, so they do need to make enough money to take care of their families. On top of that, you have just issues with the community. You know, how do you become part of a new community somewhere that you've never lived? You have no connections here, no ties. So now you're trying to create a new community here. You're trying to make new friends. You know what? Thankfully, the community is welcoming, and these people that are coming here are nice, genuine people. So it's easy to make friendships. But then you have all these other issues that need to be addressed, and that's where all the nonprofit organizations, churches.
You don't know how to address those.
Well, those are all different pieces. So you know, obviously the PTSD issue. You know, that's going to take a lot of work from the Department of Behavioral Health. That's going to take therapy. That's going to take a lot of time of reconciliation and finding a way to bring together people in a peaceful manner. When you want to talk about gainful employment, that's also a language issue.
Hang on, caller.
That's also a language issue. So we need to have language classes for all, and we do have language classes offered for children and adults. But that would then help with the employment issue. When it comes to issue of learning about the new culture, that's just by getting to know people. Right. So there are churches here in Fresno that have adopted family, synagogues, temples, churches, mosques that have adopted families.
All faiths are chiming in on this.
All faiths, and they're not adopting families in the way, look, I'm going to take care, but I'm going to take you out. My family and your family, we're going to go out to dinner. We're going to go to the park. We're going to go throw rocks in the river. We're going to go to Yosemite. And in this, the new neighbors, we're calling our Syrian families our new neighbors, what they're able to do is be able to experience what it is to be a Fresnan, what it is to be part of this community, and in doing so, maybe alleviate some of those other struggles that we might have.
Right, okay. Caller, you're on the air with Reza. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. With all these refugees coming into the United States, who is going to pay for this bill?
Who's going to pay for what?
The taxpayers?
Who's going to pay for what?
The bill for them to stay here in the United States. Who's going to support these people?
Well, hopefully they're going to support themselves. They're going to learn the system. And like I said in the monologue, I don't know if you heard me, caller, the LA Times article focused on this mainly, talked about, the majority of these Syrian refugees that have come into Fresno have been able to seek out gainful employment in the meat and poultry industry, in some of these plants, and that's been their main source of income. Not everyone.
And in some restaurants. And
some restaurants.
There's even a local bakery that was opened by Syrian refugees.
Exactly.
So, call. I don't want to just call you caller. I know that's not respectful.
What's your first name, caller?
Mario.
I can't hear you.
Mario.
Okay, Mario. That's, go ahead.
So, Mario, the United States government is not paying for these families to live here. The United States government offers help to any family that's in need, like food assistance, like cash assistance, if they are families that meet these requirements. Most of these families are gaining full-time employment in the meat and poultry industry, at restaurants, washing dishes, whatever it is to be able to feed their family. They're not just working 20 or 30 hours. They're working full-time. They're putting in effort. They're putting in a lot of time. They are trying to build themselves up to be able to have enough income for themselves so that they don't need to be supported by anybody else. And then there are local philanthropic organizations, churches that fill in the void, because just like you or I, who are born and raised here, sometimes we work 40, 50, 60 hours a week and we still don't make enough money to meet our needs, and sometimes we need that little bit of help as well. So then we go to churches, we go to other philanthropic organizations and charities for help with rent or whatever it may be. So they are trying to sustain themselves Some of them need a little bit of help, but they're doing what they need to do to be able to live here as productive citizens and to not be a burden on any member of society.
Hey, Mario, you still there? Go ahead. You're still on the air.
My question is, when we have thousands, and I'm talking a multiple thousands and thousands coming over, they all can't wash dishes. They all can't work at meat plants. What is going to happen to them?
Wait a second. Hey, Mario.
Yes.
There's only 200 here in the city of Fresno. They're also in Turlock. And of the Syrian refugees, it's hard to pin down a number, how many are in the country, how many in California. I've read that this country has taken in up to 20,000 the last 2 years. So that's not that many.
And it's actually, the 20,000 number is since 2010. So it's been a slow process.
I read in the New York Times, according to United Nations, was the last 2 years we've taken in 20,000. So I don't know.
So numbers are difficult to access, as John and I were discussing.
Got different numbers than I got.
Yeah.
So this is according to the UN, by the way. Go ahead.
And I'm not in any way involved or understand the way that the United States as a whole is dealing with Syrian refugees. I know here in the city of Fresno, we have just about 200 individuals that counts 35 families that are in the Central Valley, in Fresno particularly, and there is enough work for those 35 families. You see help wanted signs all over the place. You know, when somebody comes as a refugee, they are documented. They do have documentation. They do have the legal ability to work in our city, in our country. So I believe, I don't need to believe, I think there's enough evidence to show that there is enough work to support these 35 families.
Are you satisfied with the answer?
Well, one more question. Our customs, our religion, we have laws here. If they come here, they're going to have to go by our laws and not make their own laws. And there's no special treatment. That means if you get caught drunk driving, you're going to go to jail. There's a crime there. If you break your law and it's okay in your country, this is a different country. You have to abide by our laws. There's no special favors here.
You're right, Mario. You're right, and I would argue. I won't argue. I'll challenge you. Find one of them that have broken the law. We, as American citizens, break laws. The goat.
Yeah.
Well, but that's not a.
They slaughtered a sheep, actually.
Right, but we find a lot of.
Or did they find that it actually turned out to be a goat instead of a sheep?
Well, we find
matter.
It doesn't. Well, it matters.
It's against the law.
Matters, but I would. So there are people throughout Fresno that do kill their own food in their own backyard. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's wrong.
Illegal to do it. But anyway, the New York Times story does start out, just to be fair and balanced here, that on East San Ramon Avenue, a sheep was reportedly slaughtered in the backyard by a Syrian family. They were not cited at the time, but they were warned. They went ahead and, you know, the Syrian refugee, not sure of his name here, he later skinned and roasted that sheep or goat, whatever you want to call it, and they were warned not to do that again.
And shared the food with neighbors. I'm not saying right or wrong. It's illegal.
That's something you can't do. I don't care if you were born here or not.
Right. The fact of the matter is that some people do it. It's illegal, so it needs to be dealt with.
Correct.
But as far as drunk driving, breaking other laws, you can't find that's happening. You made a small comment and then washed it over. You said our religion. I don't know what our religion means, because we live in a pluralistic society, a country that accepts, defends, not just accepts, it defends your ability to have freedom of religion and practice of religion. It's one of the founding principles of this great nation. Without that, we wouldn't have developed the way we develop. We've accepted, we've brought in people, we've accepted people, we've stood up with people, we've stood up for people just because of their religious beliefs, Syrians included.
Hey, Mario, you got the final word, my friend, because I got to go to a commercial break.
Okay, on religion. Having sex with a minor in that country is not acceptable here in the United States.
What did he say? Mario, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, having sex with a minor in that country is not acceptable here in the United States.
Yeah, it's not acceptable in Syria either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that's got to be the final word because I got to get to a break. Mario, thank you very much for the insightful call. I appreciate it very much. Mario calling in on Connect with Me. That means that you can call in. We have an open phone line now. Mario is hung up. Thanks for his comments. 436-MeTV, option 11. I am glad you are here on this Wednesday morning.
Frigidaire. It means the first electric refrigerator. The first compact electric range. Now, there's the Frigidaire Gallery Range with Symmetry double ovens. It's designed to cook multiple dishes at multiple temperatures, so you can prepare the entire meal at the same time. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to Digital Channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV Guide.
On Monday, George and Amal Clooney announced they will help send 3,000 Syrian refugee children to school later this year in Lebanon. A statement from the Clooney Foundation for Justice said it has teamed up with Google and HP to help UNICEF and the Lebanese Ministry of Education open 7 schools for the refugee children. Lebanon, which currently houses 500,000 Syrian children, is educating them in public schools through a second shift system of additional afternoon classes. The Clooney's added in a statement Monday, thousands of young Syrian refugees are at risk, the risk of never being a productive part of society. Formal education can help change that.
So, from the Clooney Foundation, about $2 million being raised there to help educate those Syrian refugees that are in Lebanon, about 400,000 to 500,000, somewhere in that range. Again, you know, it's really, when you see a number on the internet, I don't care if it's from the United Nations or the New York Times or the LA Times, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what the number is. Even here in the city of Fresno, you know, it may be hard to pinpoint the exact number. It's not like saying, okay, there are 4 people living in your house. Okay, we can't pin it down to that. So there are millions and millions, up to 13, maybe 14 million Syrians that have been displaced out of their homes, out of their living quarters in the country of Syria. Where have they gone? Many have gone to Europe, France, Germany, Belgium, Spain. Many of those countries have taken these people in, including England and some, a small, minute portion here in the United States. But Clooney trying to help those in Lebanon, as you know. Lebanon taking in about 400,000 to 500,000 of these refugees. And there was a story over the weekend that some of these refugees were going to be displaced out of Lebanon. As a matter of fact, I do want to run another piece of videotape before I go to the caller who's calling out of the area. Caller, be patient. I'll get to you in a minute. It's called Fire Lebanon Camp. And so there was a fire at one of the refugees camps just recently here. I mean, within the past week or so, couple of weeks. Let's roll that videotape. It's got sound on it.
Horrific scenes as fire rips through a camp for Syrian refugees in Lebanon. As residents ran to safety, at least one person was confirmed dead, a child according to some reports. A number of people were injured in the blaze near the town of Kab Elias in the Bekaa Valley. The cause is unclear, with a cooking accident or a power surge among the theories being investigated. Little was left by the fire, with around 100 tents destroyed. Lebanon hosts at least 1 million registered Syrian refugees, although many more are thought to be there. One source said a large number of those at the destroyed camp had fled from the region around ISIL's de facto capital, Raqqa.
See, so that happened at one of the camps that was that's actually set up there in Lebanon for some of these Syrian refugees, and some of the dangers and warnings that need to go out, because that apparently was an accidental fire, and something just blew up there. Don't know how many people injured or killed at that particular camp. But keep in mind, you heard the number there at the end of the video. They said about 1 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon, but the number I've heard was 400,000 to 500,000. Maybe some of those have left. Maybe those numbers are not accurate. So again, we're guessing here as to how many numbers, how many people, and we're dealing with real people here. We're not just dealing with number, we're dealing with human beings that have been displaced. Imagine being displaced out of your home. You don't know where you're going. Are you going to Alaska, Hawaii, Timbuktu? Who knows where? Caller, you've been patient. You're on the air with Reza Nekumanish. Go ahead. What's your question? What's your comment? Caller.
Hello.
You're on the air.
Yes.
Go.
Yes, my name is Marcius, and I'm concerned for my fellow American people because of how I've viewed the scene in Europe, where some of these immigrants from Syria are turning on the people that accept them in, and they cause havoc, they cause death, and I don't know why, but it's probably in the name of Allah, their God. So that's why it concerns me that so many will come here and do that here in the United States.
Go ahead, Reza. Comment. Stay on the line.
How do I comment?
However you'd like.
So first of all, Marcus, correct? Marcus, I don't know what havoc you say is being caused in European countries by refugees. Please bring some statistics or an actual case.
Well, there was
number
one
two,
case
yeah,
in France.
but we actually don't know if he was a Syrian refugee or somebody that came there on a passport.
It was reported that it was.
It was reported, and then it was never reported again because I think it was found to be not accurate that he was a Syrian refugee. Number two,
not sure.
Number two is nobody is coming to the United States and wreaking havoc. According to the FBI statistics, not a single person who has had refugee status in the United States has committed a violent crime against an American. So we're not talking about havoc. We're talking about not even an assault and battery charge against an American, according to the FBI, not according to some cuckoo.com. They're not coming here to cause havoc. People are coming here escaping sure death, sure slaughter at the hands of the very terrorists that we claim to be fighting. And they're coming here and seeking safety and solace and peace and refuge in a country that says that we offer peace and solace and safety and refuge to those that are being persecuted. You also mentioned that they're doing it in the name of Allah. The word Allah is an Arabic word meaning the God. So whether they are Christian or Jewish or Muslim, doesn't matter. If you speak the Arabic language, the word Allah means God. So in the Bible, it actually says Allah rather than God, which is just an English term. So it is not a different God that anybody else believes in. So when they're coming here and living here in peace and trying to work for their family and trying to provide for their family and trying to become productive neighbors and productive citizens, they are doing that in the name of God. They're not causing havoc in the name of God. They're trying to be productive and be good citizens in the name of God.
Go ahead and respond there. Is your name Marcus?
Yes, Marcius. I understand everything he's saying, but I still have my misgivings. I see what's going on the news in Europe, and all the murders that have been going on by some of these immigrants, mostly from Syria. They're doing not habit murdering people, running over them with buses, trucks, bombs, etc. I don't want that to be happening here. So I'm very concerned how many come here and how they're vetted as well.
Yeah, Marcus, you're absolutely correct. But the gentleman who drove the bus into the people was not a Syrian refugee, was a citizen of the country. If we're worried about buses running into people here in the United States, we can look at American non-Muslim citizens who are running buses into worshipers exiting mosques, because that is more a reality than what you're sharing. Marcus, thank you for your call.
Go ahead, Marcus. You're still on.
I just support President Donald Trump in his way of dealing with the situation. I hope more Americans would be in support of him.
Okay. All right, Marcus, thank you very much for the call. Let me ask you about Since we're coming off that call, I'm sure you probably get that response maybe quite a bit. Maybe you're asked that quite a bit about the terror thing. There are quite a few homegrown terrorists in Europe and here in the United States. There are a lot of terror acts that have taken place overseas in Europe recently, in Belgium, in France, London. We've seen it in Germany. Merkel has been criticized by Donald Trump and others for letting too many of these people in. All right, let me quote Trevor Carey, a conservative talk show host on Power Talk 96.7 here in the city of Fresno, quoted in this New York Times article. He is quoted as saying on his radio talk show, "In my years in the Central Valley, I've met some great Syrian people," he said on the air during a segment about Muslim refugees. He went on to say, "Come on, our safety is at stake here. This area they are coming from is embedded with ISIS." ISIS. Hang on, caller. I'll get to you in a moment. I want Reza to respond to Trevor Carey's comment. Go ahead.
ISIS is a real problem. ISIS is a real threat. ISIS is something that needs to be dealt with. I think we have to look at the root of where this problem comes and then not punish victims of this terror. First of all, the sad, hard-to-face reality is that we as United States armed a group of people and told them to rise up against their government, the Assad regime, which we are against, the Assad regime in Syria. That group turned out to become something called ISIS. We didn't mind what ISIS did so long as they did it in Syria. As soon as it crossed the borders, it became a problem for us. ISIS is a problem. ISIS is causing and wreaking havoc to the Syrian citizens, to Iraqi citizens. We kind of set off this time bomb. We wanted to get rid of a regime. We armed a group of people. They started warring with each other. And the only victims were regular citizens living, working, going to school, and having to escape the very terror that we claim to be fighting. So what are we going to do? We're going to set up this bomb, have two groups fight each other, and then we're going to close the door and say nobody can get away? No, we need to allow those people who are like you and me, just wanting to live in peace and freedom and love and harmony, to get away from the very murder and terrorism that we claim to be fighting and come to a place that they can find safety and solace. Right now, Syria is not a place that somebody can live in safety and solace. Right now, living in Syria could mean today is your last breath, and we can't let men, women, and children suffer that just because of our own politics.
Okay. Let me just, before I go to the call here, and as a newsman, I try to be fair and balanced. But here are the facts. The facts are, during the Assad regime in the spring of 2011, there were some demonstrators. Okay, shots were fired. From that point on, there was a civil war. Assad is backed by Putin. Assad is backed by Iran and Hezbollah. Then, throw in the mix a couple of years later, throw in ISIS. Now you've got ISIS fighting in that country as well. Okay, this is all in Syria now. This is in the country of Syria. So you have Assad, backed by Putin, Iran, Hezbollah, ISIS, a separate group altogether, okay? Then you've got the Kurds, another separate group altogether in a different part of Syria. Then you've got the United States of America caught in the middle on the border, but they're fighting against Assad, but we're supposed to be allies with Russia, who is backing Assad. Conflicting. It's very conflicting and very convoluted. All right, on the other side of the coin, you've got the country of Jordan, and then you have the Freedom Syrian rebels, the army, that are fighting against the Assad regime. You have the Gulf states fighting against the Assad regime. You have Turkey that's infiltrating, maybe throwing a few weapons in there to fight the Assad regime. Where does the United States stand? We know they don't stand with Assad. We stand with the rebels, and initially we were trying to arm the rebels and help the rebels, but as of late, when President Obama was still in office, we were fighting ISIS, according to the president. In fact, we were bombing ISIS in Syria on a consistent basis. More recently, President Trump takes over. He throws a bomb in on Syria to try to squelch whatever was happening with Assad. okay, because the insurgents, I guess it started up again, and Donald Trump was trying to put the lid on it. That's basically what has happened in Syria the last 4 years in a nutshell. You have all these different factions, and then you have all these outside countries that are either backing Assad, backing ISIS, and by the way, who is funding ISIS? Where's ISIS getting their funding from and their backing from in Syria? Could it be Putin? Could it be Hezbollah? We don't really know. Could it be Turkey? 436 MeTV option 11. Caller has been waiting for a very long time. Go ahead. You're on the air with Reza.
I had a question for Reza. Do you subscribe to the Shia or the Sunni theory?
I'm Muslim, but I serve a community that is majority, about 60% of our congregation is Sunni. So we have both in our congregation, but I particularly am Shia.
And when you talk about definitions, Allah being God, is Islam, the definition would be submission?
Would the definition of Islam be submission? No, just did you get, yeah.
So the word Islam does mean submission to God. So a Muslim is one who submits to God. There is a small m and a capital M. The small m Muslim would be anything that submits to God. I mean, you know, the skies and the heavens and the earth and the water, they all submit to this universal law of God. The capital M Muslim is one who adheres to the religion that was promulgated by Prophet Muhammad in the early 7th century of Saudi Arabia, who is one who submits to God. Yes.
Right, and there's no question that Jesus was here, but Muhammad came after Jesus, and so he is the last prophet, and therefore his word is the last word. And is it not true that Islam, being submission to the religion, to Muhammad, as opposed to the country, say Syria, or the United States, or Saudi Arabia? In other words, the submission is to Muhammad, not to a sovereign state, correct?
So there's two parts to your question. Number one, it's not submission to Muhammad, it's submission to God, whom we believe sent a series of prophets to teach us about his will. Number two, including finally with Muhammad, but starting with Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and ending with Muhammad. And then number two, that is not in contradiction to being submissive to the state law or the law of the land that we live in. It's actually an Islamic tenet that one has to be an abiding by the law of the land. So those are not contradictory. You know, you can be submissive to God as well as submissive to the law of the land at the same time, just like one can be Christian, submissive to the will of Jesus Christ, as well as being submissive to the law of the United States. It's not contradictory, it's complementary, and it works together well.
And so the law does not have to be Sharia?
What's that again? We didn't catch the first part of that.
The law does not have to be Sharia law?
No, sir. So there's a lot of talk in the media about something called Sharia law. This is another subject all in itself. If Mr. Malice would like to have another show about Sharia law, we could get somebody who's a great expert on Sharia law. Sharia, it means the way or the path, and it includes everything. What can you eat? How do you treat one another?
It's basic. Sharia law is your lifestyle.
It's your lifestyle. What people refer to as Sharia, like the capital punishments or the corporal punishments that exist in what is called Sharia law, those are something that they don't exist here. We don't live in a land that is ruled by or run by a theocracy.
But there are a lot of Christians that live in this country that go by Sharia law because they follow the word of Jesus. especially during Easter. If they're fasting, they're watching what they're eating, so they're doing it without even realizing it. So it's a lifestyle. It's how you worship. It's how you pray. It's how you live your life. It's how you treat others. I'm no expert in Sharia law, but this is how I understand it in general terms. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I think that more importantly right now is that we in the United States, we live in accordance with the laws of our citizenship. We have certain rights and responsibilities being a citizen of the land. Everybody who lives in this land has those rights and responsibilities, including Muslims. And somebody cannot claim to be a Muslim and then be somehow exempt from this law or that law. We do have to abide by the law of the land that we live. It's part of citizen contract, and it's something that we do abide by. We're engaging in a contract. When we want to be a citizen or a resident even of a place where we live, we're engaged in a contract. We have rights and responsibilities. We have things that are owed to us, and we have things that we owe. And part of what we owe is abiding by the law of the land. This is not in contradiction with being submissive to God. It is actually in line with and complementary.
Well, no matter what God you believe in, if you're a religious person, you're submissive to God, whatever God that may be. But go ahead, caller, continue. Go ahead. Turn him up, Kerry.
Yeah, I just had one more question. How do you feel about the Council of America Islamic Relations, or CARE?
Okay, thanks. That'll have to be the final one because I'm running out of time, but I appreciate your call. Thank you. Okay.
So CARE, or the Council of American Islamic Relations, is an organization here in the United States that has chapters throughout, including a chapter in Fresno, including a chapter in San Francisco, and Sacramento, and Los Angeles.
And again, it's called
the Council on American Islamic Relations. They have a wonderful working relationship with government entities, law enforcement entities, and agencies.
And they got an agency right here in the city of Fresno.
They just recently opened a chapter here, and what they do is work for the rights of everybody, and specifically highlight instances where Muslims or Muslim organizations are targets of
violence. Okay, got to go to break. Reza Nekumanish is here talking about the Syrian refugee crisis. We're going to go to break, but coming out of the break, you're going to hear from Darius Assemi. He is obviously the president, the CEO of Granville Homes. He spoke a couple of years ago to Cornerstone Church. That's where Jim Franklin preaches out of. Talked about back then, this was 2 years ago, when he spoke about how to deal with the Syrian refugee crisis. Back in a moment, and you'll hear from Darius on that soundbite.
The following is a list of celebrities you will not see on MeTV programs. Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Snooki, Paris Hilton, Perez Hilton, Honey Boo Boo, Justin Bieber, Simon Cowell, Chris Brown, Miley Cyrus, and the Real Housewives of any place. This is who you will see on MeTV programs. Lucy, Ralph, Mary, Perry, Gilligan, Kenner, Spock, Batman, Rowdy, Festus, and the Beaver. MeTV. Thanks for watching.
There is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 million Syrian refugees. There's what's called the emptying of Syria. What we do know is as these kids that are fleeing their country get exposed to repeated trauma and are around violence, just fleeing their country, they're growing up around bombings and bloodshed and their family members getting killed. These refugees are business people, physicians, contractors, council members, farmers that have fled and given up their homeland. The exposure that they receive to trauma and acts of violence in their journey will set them up for more acts of violence as they grow up. So the sooner we deal and address this refugee issue, this is my own perspective, I'm not representing anybody on this stage, the sooner we address this refugee issue as a globe, as a world, the sooner we can get to a peaceful solution and make sure none of them get radicalized. If you grow up around bloodshed, bombings, killings, whether it's in Fresno, in parts of Fresno, or it's in Syria, it's going to be much easier for you to pull the trigger as you grow up. So it's our role as the richest nation, again, it's my opinion, as the richest nation in the world, and as Western Europe, to come together to address this issue, to figure out where are these folks going to go, have an organized solution to address the plight of these refugees. So it's not haphazard. We actually take control. Where should they go? How should they be addressed so that we minimize their trauma in this journey? Apologize for taking the time, but...
Okay, before I get to the caller, okay, why should we listen to Darius Assemi? We know is he Islamic?
He's a Muslim, yes.
He's a Muslim. He's from Iran.
He's from Iran.
So he has a soft spot in his heart for this particular issue. Good advice coming from Darius, but have we followed along that path, either Western Europe or the United States? Have we followed what he has suggested?
I think that we can do a lot more. I think, you know, if the American public understood what somebody goes through to become a refugee, to be able to gain access to the United States, a lot of our fears could be subsided. There's a lot of talk in the news about the vetting process. We need to vet these people. We need to vet. We need to vet. We need to check
talking about
history.
it all the time.
Right. For somebody to actually gain refugee status to be in the United States, first of all, out of all the refugees in the world who apply for refugee status, or out of all the people displaced from their homes throughout the world that apply for refugee status, 1 out of 500 actually gain the refugee status. By the time somebody gains refugee status, their personal self, their bank accounts, their friends, their family, their work, everything that they've done has been scrutinized, investigated, and checked for threat and threat level. For somebody to be able to come here, that means that they are absolutely clear of any history that would make them a threat. If there is anything in their history, anything in their family history, anything in their bank accounts, anything in their job that somehow signal or identify somebody as being a possible threat to the safety or sanctity of the United States and its citizens, that person would not receive. They would be one of the 499 out of 500 who never receive refugee status.
I got to take this call. I'm going to run out of time. Caller, quickly. We're short on time. What's your question for Reza? Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to address your last callers who were Mario and Marcus. I believe their names were. They were both worried about what they were seeing in the news, and they said that they were worried about the Syrians coming over, committing crimes and whatnot. I would tell Mario and Marcus that all they would have to do is go to the Fresno County Jail. Do they see it overcrowded with Syrian refugees? Do they see the California prison system being overcrowded with Syrian refugees? I mean, you do see, however, the Fresno County Jail and the California prison system being overcrowded with immigrants coming here illegally through Mexico. I'm sorry if that offends him, but it's a fact that they both have to deal with. So that's what I wanted to say to both Mario and Marcus. Thank you for taking my call.
All right, thank you for the call. Okay, so the caller does bring up a very good point. A lot of our jail systems, a lot of our prisons are filled up with people from this country, whether they be African American, whether they be Hispanic, whether they be white, or any other kind of culture. And so is it an unfair pointing of the finger at some of these refugees?
I think that today we've had the discussion. We've been able to try to dispel some of the myths that Syrian refugees are coming here and causing crimes. It doesn't mean that I want to point the finger at other groups of people.
Well, we're not pointing fingers. We're just pointing out facts.
Right. So a simple answer is Syrians and other refugees are not filling up our jails. Because our jails are being filled up with people, that's a totally different issue that we have to address at some point.
Right.
But Syrian refugees, who we call our new neighbors, who we are trying to embrace as Fresnans.
Okay.
Because if we keep calling them Syrian refugees, they're never going to be part of our community. But these people are not causing havoc, and I appreciate the call.
Before we run out of time here, okay, there are 3 different statuses. There's the refugee status, there is the asylum status, and there is the displaced status. According to the United Nations, there have been up to 13.5 million Syrians displaced from their homes since 2011, since the war broke out. That's a pretty accurate. So how many of these have asked for asylum? How many of these have asked for refugee status really is kind of up in the air, because they're going all over the place. They're going to Turkey, they're going to Lebanon, they're going to Jordan, they're going to Egypt, they're going to Germany, Poland, Hungary, Austria, Sweden, Finland, Switzerland, Italy, Greece, Romania, Bulgaria. They're going to all these different countries, including England.
And Mr. Mallow, sometimes they will flee Syria by foot or by however they can. They will go to places like Lebanon, Jordan, Greece, and apply for refugee status there. So many of the people that are here in Fresno, they didn't come here straight from Syria. They were somewhere else for a period of time awaiting refugee permission.
Exactly. Hey, here's what you told the New York Times, and I'm going to quote you.
All right.
Helping one or two families, that's easy, you told the Times. But soon one family after another was arriving from San Diego out of state. They didn't realize rent is low here in Fresno for some reason. Is that why they're coming? I said that in the monologue.
You know, we find that one of the key factors bringing having people relocate themselves to Fresno is because, you know, cost of living is considerably lower here than throughout the rest of California. That obviously that particular reason that I'm talking about is our high unemployment rate.
Yes.
You know, when you have high unemployment and we live in somewhere that it's normal to be 107 degrees on a daily basis, there's no wonder why our rent is lower than other places. But yes, that is one of the main
I'm going to take this call real quick. Caller, you've got about maybe 10 seconds to make your comment. Go ahead. You're on the air. Go.
I just wanted to tell that man there, your guest, that I totally agree with everything he said. And I wish people would drop the pretenses and the prejudices.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you for the call. That was quick. I like that.
That was the nicest call I've ever received on your show, John.
Yeah. So
that was a good one.
A number, Reza, where people can call in if they want to help some of these Syrian refugees.
Absolutely.
Can they call the Islamic Cultural Center?
They can come to the Islamic Cultural Center, which is on Nice between Maple and Chestnut. They can call us 559-297-9535.
Slow.
559-297-9535.
Okay, and if you want to donate clothing, you can.
Yeah.
You want to donate canned foods, you can.
You want to donate time. You want to find a way to donate time. We partner with FIRM, the Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministries, and through their director, Zach, we're able to coordinate any kind of help that you can offer. There's a little bit of an induction so that you can learn about the culture and about the people. And then, you know, if you have the ability to tutor kids, you have the ability to teach language, you have the ability to help get people to appointments, whatever it is that you can do, we try to connect the resource with the need.
Okay, what does FIRM stand for again?
Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministries.
Okay.
And its director is Zach Dara, and is a Reverend Zach Dara.
All right, maybe we can get him on the program here at some point.
That would be great.
We come in with you, talk with you.
Let's do it.
All right. Anyway, we'll get Zach on at another time. Reza, thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much. Always good to see you, and always good to hear from you. And I'm glad you finally got your due here in the New York Times, not only nationally, but around the world. This paper goes around the world. You know that, don't you?
I know that.
All right.
Yes.
Man, if you were to pick a paper, it would be the New York Times that you would want to be in. Believe me, not the Fresno Bee, not the LA Times.
Oh, I love the Fresno Bee.
New York Times, my friend, right here. See you tomorrow with Jennifer Crocker. She's a physiatrist. Look that up. See you tomorrow.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
When you're looking for Whirlpool innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified Whirlpool appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Unscramble.
Sing, honey, sing.